Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome to Football Manager 24. This is the Youth Factory series. Now, this is actually a continuation of the FM23 Youth Factory series. Technically, this would be episode number 47. But thanks to FM24 offering a new feature, saves can continue. So let me get you caught up if you are new to the series here, as yes, from now on this is technically counting up from episode number 1 because this is our first episode in Football Manager 24 this year. But let me catch you up on the premise of the series. Youth Factory is a fictional club that is set in the southwestern coast, in fact the extreme southwestern coast of England. Officially located in Senin at Land's End in the county of Cornwall. That is actually part of the premise of this series. It is one of the only regions in England that does not have significant representation in the higher tiers of the football pyramid. And so we're trying to make that happen. I started in FM23 partway into release with a database that provided us all the way down to the 11th tier. And we started in the 11th tier. And using the database editor, we had an entire squad of current ability 1 players. We had the worst team that was possible to field. And they lost. They lost a lot. In addition, this team has a 100-plus year transfer ban. We can never bring a new player into this squad, except through a single method, and that method being our youth facilities, hence the Youth Factory name. What we have done, though, while setting up a near impossible challenge, is we have added in one very strong, capable component. That component being that youth component and having perfect youth facilities, a 20 of 20. Over the seasons, we have grown the other components that were all at that lowest level, 1 of 20. We have grown them into something capable. We now have fairly basic corporate facilities, average training facilities, but we still have the state-of-the-art youth facilities. We still have an exceptional academy coaching and exceptional youth recruitment. But part of the coding that goes into determining what players you will receive have to do with the level you're playing at and the reputation you have. But out of a 10,000, our reputation started at a 1. We were a brand new club, just forming. You don't just get handed a reputation, you have to earn it. And so earn it, we have worked on. Now, over the last 2 seasons, we have climbed to such a position that our stadium was insufficient. We rented out another stadium nearby, half-hour drive away, for the entirety of last season while we worked on an expansion to our home stadium, adding 500 seats from the 1,000-seater that we had, making it a 1,500-seater, which we can fill out, by the way. But this year, we have entered the National League, specifically the National League South. And in the National League South, there is a requirement of a 3,000-plus capacity stadium. So we have, at least for now, moved an hour away from home to Bickland Park in Falmouth. Now, the fee is nothing for us. Our finances are just fine because over the years, we have produced some good quality young talents that were capable of playing either in the Championship or the Premier League, and some quite good potential Premier League players. And so we've collected sums of money for future percentages of transfer fees that the Championship sides that usually come in and buy our guys will eventually collect. The millions that they get, we end up getting anywhere from 30 to 50% of that, or the profit of that. And it has added up to a pretty healthy balance for us. We currently have 12.8 million. You can see how that's grown over the recent seasons. We had 2 big influxes of cash, and that is from those future sales of players that we've already sold on. Now, I have a rule in here of minimum security on contracts. Otherwise, we would never be able to retain players, especially when we were an amateur side. Players would have left in a hurry. And with the constraints of the playthrough, with the transfer ban and not being able to bring in anyone to replace anyone, we had to at least be able to keep players to an extent. A minimal extent, but to an extent. That has worked out pretty well for us. But my rule that we are following is that if a team comes in and offers substantially over what they are worth, I have to, in good faith, negotiate a deal. I have the option to keep them on loan for a year so we can at least keep them around for a little bit longer before they move on. But also the future fee included, that 50% sale on clause, is a massive part. That's how helping us grow as a club. We are fully professional now, and we're doing quite well in the grand scheme of things. The big concern at the moment is this lack of stadium. Following a playoff victory, the first non-league title promotion that we earned, and we have had successive promotions, league title after league title, and eventually settling in on the playoff promotion last season, we find ourselves in a similar state this year. And not quite as good. Each successive step up as the opposition get better and better. Our advantage early on with the perfect youth facilities has been largely negated, and we're coming up against better and better opposition that have just made it tougher and tougher on us to keep things going, especially when interest from the outside towards our players leads them to be unhappy and then them perform at a level less than what they're capable of. We have just navigated that problem. Now on the 10th of March, at the end of January, we sold on a couple of our key players with loan backs for the remainder of the year because they were upset and because the offers did exceed that value and we had no choice. But with those couple of sales, those unhappy players are finally happy again, and it's leading us to pick up our performance level just a little bit. And at the moment, we find ourselves just 4 points out of second place. And our next opponent is Chelmsford, who is that team who is 4 points above us in second place. Sumahoro, 26 goals on the season, and that's one of those two guys. He is going to be leaving us at the end of the year. We will have to replace him. He scores goals for fun. But for a period of time, from about December all the way through to the end of January, he was rather upset. And we went through a really bad run of form because we just could not get enough goals. We drew more often than not, but it cost us a lot. And on the season right now, we have 19 wins, 12 draws, and 6 losses. And so many of those, especially the draws, came during that couple-month stretch where Sumahoro and our goalkeeper, Bercielli, were pretty unhappy with the state of affairs. Over the years, we have finally built up a good staff. We didn't have reputation, so it was really hard to find quality staff for a very long time. In fact, I worked alone for a while. We don't need scouts because we can't sign anyone, so that's why we only have one, and that's mostly to just keep an eye on the players who have left us, but also to start prepping scouting reports for opposition. But what we do have is a pretty decent squad, but a squad with limitations because we can't add to it, because we have to get that luck of the draw, and the better the player is that we get through our intake, the more likely they are to be gone within a couple of seasons because the higher levels come calling and can easily exceed the valuations, because as a National League South side and below in subsequent or previous years, it's been real easy for them to get into that 10 to 20 to 30 to 100,000 range when they can afford to spend millions on players of similar level. But slowly but surely, we have built up a squad that now has a current ability of 100 plus for 6 players. And yes, I do look specifically at current ability and potential ability on this playthrough. There's no signings that we could do, so there's not any cheating that could happen, other than me having a better picture of the players that we do have within the squad. Some would consider that cheating, but I certainly do not, as we literally have limitations on what we have. And it really doesn't take much to look player by player and see what we have. But for the pacing, with the number of seasons that we cover, it's much easier to get that very clear picture of our own team. One thing that I avoid at all costs is looking at other teams and finding out where they're at in comparison. But Lanahan Penreese is our best player, but you can see that our second and third best player just behind him within 4 points is Berchielli and Sumahoro, the two guys that are leaving us at the end of the season, which means replacements. Of course, internally are what it's going to take to keep that going. Unlike in previous seasons, our average ratings are down significantly, and a couple of our better players in Berchielli, in Adekunle, don't even have 7.0 ratings this season. So we have found things difficult at times. But since we've picked up the training facilities, and especially since we turned professional prior to last season, we have seen a lot more rapidity in the growth rate. It's really picked up on the development side of players, and it's allowing us to continue climbing, not 2 to 3 years at a time to climb the ladder, but to continually climb one season at a time. Though we do seem to be approaching at least a 1 season barrier on that. As we continually lose a couple of our best players every year and have to replace them internally with guys who clearly are not at that same stage yet. As our development slowly picks up, we climb that ladder, and the league picks up. And right now, the league is picking up a little bit faster than we are picking up. So it could be, if we do get promoted this year, we could end up spending a couple of years in the National League. Of course, one of the big new features in FM24 is the new set piece creator. And I've already gone in and set up our first set piece situation, and that is our attacking corner kicks, with attacking the far post as our primary target, with a couple of aerial threats on that far post, one lurking near the near post, one marking that keeper, trying to hold them off, adding in a box threat near the near post, so adding one who can play the ball on their feet if the ball comes in low, and then a creator out on the edge, and then focusing up to 3 defenders to assure that we don't get counterattacked the other way. Due to the sheer quality that Adekunle gives us over other players, we're going to have him take corners from either side. My defensive routine is going to be mixed with 3 zonal marking players, looking to win headers, anything coming into their area, but then player marking for the next one, and a couple players on the posts. Great new additions into how you manage things such as penalties. There's a few check boxes down here. Allow player who has scored 2 goals to take penalty. Change taker if player has already taken a penalty. And change taker if player has already missed a penalty. All things that coaches have to consider in real life and are finally implemented into the game. And I have all of those checked. We're going to enter our first game here in just a moment. But first, the Cornish situation and that little side project that we have going on with this game. Now, in the county of Cornwall, there is one club that is well above the others. That's Truro City, and Truro City is actively in the 6th tier in real life. In game, after these number of seasons have transpired, we met them head-to-head in the 7th tier. We met them in the promotion playoffs, knocked them off, and we got promoted to the 6th tier. So we are where they are in real life at this point, and we are now the highest ranked Cornwall club in the entire database. That does not complete our goal, though. That is only one portion of that goal. Larger, as you push out the peninsula itself, you include Devon County. And so we are setting our sights on beating those clubs, getting above all of those Devon County clubs, and then likewise Somerset and Dorset are included, and then of course the greater southwest region of England all become targets. So we are setting our sights on club after club after club as we climb up the rankings. We literally, with that reputation of one, started last place in that entire 11-tier database. We have climbed significantly and have now beat out roughly 85-90% of all of the clubs across England. So we have really climbed a long ways already, but we're still just in the 6th tier. So we've still got a long ways to go yet in our goal of becoming the greatest Southwest club. For all I know, it may have something to do with the fact that I'm 4 days into the save being on FM24. And so it hasn't had enough time to calculate and prepare and give us what should have been a high quality intake. Instead, we have an average intake, and that's it. Bit rough. Evaluating the intake alongside our regular players, the intake players are in green. You can see that potential-wise, there's 5 players with a decent amount of potential. And, if you dip down a little bit further, there's 3-4 more players that are pretty all right. There's a group at the bottom that are never going to be good enough to play for us, so we will, instantly let those guys go and then have to make a decision on the others and who we want to retain. Because, reminder, everything has to happen internally. This intake is the only source of players that we get for this series. Dang, a current ability 58, but a max of 64. Hurts to lose, but really isn't going to be good enough. I mean, we've already got somebody right there who plays same position that's at the current ability the same and has at least a bit more potential. As we enter our very first game in FM24 with our converted Youth Factory series here, our squad is well equipped to do well in the league. But one thing has been clear to me so far this season. The top teams, top 4 or 5 teams, we've had some trouble with. We tend to be fine against everybody else. We've had the most injuries over the course of the season, though we are finally healthy. Here in the 6th minute, we get a goal from Thornhill. I had a couple adjustments to make as the audio seemed really loud and it blacked out for a moment. We've got it fixed after the goal has scored, but Thornhill with the beating Knightbridge on the far post there. Well done, nice cross, good finish, and it's an early lead for us, even though not much has happened. Now, most people will be aware that FM25 is set to be the biggest upgrade in Football Manager history, or at least in modern times. Certainly as long as I've been playing, which is already beyond a decade at this point that I've been playing FM. But even though FM25 is the huge awaited release, FM24 is coming with a lot. It really is offering a lot. How is this a corner? That was just a really poor shot from my perspective, and here they go again. Ooh, close range, great save from Berchielli. Great reaction. He could have placed that a little bit more towards the corners, but really both posts were being marked pretty well. That was offside. Where's the flag? Come on. The guys had already come off the post, and their guy was still standing on the line. Oh, Atkins gives it away. Boy, we are struggling all of a sudden. Anyway, FM24 has been a substantial update to the graphics engine, even though the new graphics engine is coming next year. The reality of the situation is that FM25 is bringing so many new features, and they had to develop those features to prepare them for the new engine. And within that, some of those features could be put on display now in FM24 as they do translate here. It didn't require significant extra work to get them into the current model, and that looked well offside too. Yikes. Well, anyway, what we have is a few FM25 features sneaking in a year early, and it's cool. It's significant, the upgrades. We did absolutely nothing after dominating that early play and getting that early goal. They came back really strong, but we survived. We weathered that and slowed things down, and then we quickly found ourselves at halftime. Good response from the squad. It's hard to get that with a 1-0 lead sometimes, and especially when, like I said earlier, we really set ourselves up for failure early on. We really struggled in that first season. Part of the reason for that was I had no coaching staff, and I, as manager, also did the same thing. I set myself up to be as bad as possible as we create a wonderful chance there inside, but it gets blocked, leads to the counterattack. Unfortunately, we're able to get back behind the ball. Hassel with a block on that one. Can't recover. Big chance. Berchielli, does he tip that over? He does. It's out for a corner kick. Yikes on the sequence of play. Not really going our way. Another big chance. Close range, but no power on that chipped cross. And Berchielli has to rush to it, but he's able to rush to the corner. Didn't even end up having to dive. Adekunle, that's off the wall. Out for the corner. And finally, we do something. We have done absolutely nothing since grabbing that early goal. Hassel does not win that header, but Radnat recovers, gives it back to Hassel. He crosses, low cross, flash across the box, but it is cleared out. Chance for a long throw. Sumahoro back to Kitching. Mortland, McFadden. Mortland finds Lanahan Penreese in close. He beats the keeper on the far post, but he goes just beyond the corner of that crossbar, and that's that out. 1 hour played. Changes need to happen. We have got to do something to stamp our authority on this game a little bit better than we are currently, because tactically we are not looking at all better than Chelmsford. Portland, interception. Sumahoro finds Lanahan Penreese. He's taking his man one-on-one for a bit. Goes back inside. McFadden has some space. We had a little 3-on-2 there for a moment, but we get McFadden, and we get it into Penreese, and he scores. Far post this time does not go wide by inches. This time he goes a little bit straighter on the shot. Let's bend to it. And do we keep this onside? Atkins, Penreese takes it off the chest. He was onside. He does beat Knightbridge. He does place it inside the net. It's 2-0 with only 4 shot attempts. So let's go ahead and drop to balance. Let's go ahead and start changing the tactics. We're going to play for set pieces to help slow it down, but we're not going to time waste. Just, you know what? It's not that early. It's not that early. Just some moderate time wasting is all. Sewell in close, but that's cleared out. He's one of the big-time players in this league. He's a big threat, and we survive that particular threat. Still 2-0. They again play short. Berchielli grabs the long cross. They have been the better team today. We've been FM'd so many times this season where we've been the better teams and end up dropping the points. Today, we get to do the opposite. We get to FM them. Fadden with the interception. Lays off to Berchielli, sends a long ball. Sumahoro after the misplay. Miscue from the defense there, and Sumahoro earns the corner kick. Probably should have just put this game to bed at 3-0, but we'll take some moderate time wasting here. Subs to happen. What should I do with the subs? Hassel retreats, gets there first. Love how they the animations are so much smoother, the player movement. Oh, Lanahan Penreese has picked up a knock. Let's get him off. It would be nice to know if we had positions assigned to these guys, but fortunately I know my squad. Let's go ahead and time waste a little bit more. We don't need to change anything else. It's a 2-goal lead. Mortland after the interception. Sumahoro, well done in possession. Thornhill is onside. Right back, right center back were both playing him on. They were retreating further than he was. Not a smart move from them. 93rd minute. 3 points are nearly ours. A very big 3 points at that. Hassel, Kamara finds Mortland and Atkins. Double pivot for us. In our modern 4-3-3. Berchielli wasting a little time. Final minute of extra time. That's a big chance. Probably wouldn't have been enough, but it was a big chance nonetheless. And it ended up being the final play. We kick it away for the final whistle and 3 points. Big 3 points at an important time in this season. With that, we jump to third place and just a single point behind Chelmsford, who we just beat. We have a +4 goal differential to them. The only problem with all of this is that Yeovil leads by a wide margin and look assured to not be caught. There's only 8 matches left in the season, but we're ahead of Gloucester, Gosport, Bromley now, and then a huge gap to Weymouth, who occupy the final promotion playoff spot for now. As our best player, you definitely don't want to see him going down. He's already had a pretty significant injury this season, was out for a while. Still fairly recent on his recovery from that, but he's got a pulled groin muscle. He'll be out for just under a week. Fortunately, it's a minor injury after getting tackled. And so I've let 3 more players go, so 7 of the intake players in all, so just about half of the group. And then we are signing the rest of them, which is, 9? 9 players that we are bringing into the squad for the coming season. Now, in theory, and how we've been kind of working this process of late is, well, we have the exodus of 2 key players. The minimum security will help us keep the others, but 2 players outbound, 9 players inbound with this intake, which means slowly but surely we've been reshaping the depth of the club. Of course, the best players have gone largely straight into the side. In fact, year 1, the entire intake instantly took over as our starters. In year 2, half of them instantly went up to, well, a third of them instantly went up to the senior squad, and then a further group joined at the start of the new season. And then each year, that percentage has grown smaller and smaller and smaller. And we've had years where we didn't see a player from the intake make the senior squad for at least a year. This is looking like one of those groups, though Archie Jones certainly does have the ability to feature, to join that senior squad and be an effective member of that. But in terms of the potential, we're just trying to elevate the bar. There was a time where the current ability minimum was 30 of the intake players. We've risen enough divisions that now that minimum's a 35. So there are some players in our U21s that have never grown, that didn't have the determination, that didn't have terribly high potential, that are still down there. Kai Clark is a 31. He would have started as a 30. He has progressed 1. He's a 20-year-old player now. So from that new intake, those 7 additional guys will largely start to replace the holdovers, the U21s, the guys that haven't made it into that senior squad. The U18s, for me, is the place of development, the highest potential guys, and bringing them along. And if they develop well enough, they go on to the senior squad. If they don't, they end up on the U21s, and the U21s are the ones that haven't done enough. Now, there are players that have played well in the U21s of late, and their training ratings are okay. You're definitely seeing something like Ugwu with a 8.3 training rating, who is developing nicely. Northmore Bud is developing nicely, but limited potential. There's a lot more limited potential here, and just progression rates. Lee Campbell, Rod Guthrie. So with the addition of those new players, once I get them all signed up, and of course it's nearly the end of the season, so this is one of those processes that I'll wait until we get there. But with that new group, there will be a replacement of roughly 7 players from the U21s that we'll just let go. We'll have enough, we'll part ways with them, but not necessarily all 7, maybe 5, 6 weaker players that we now have better prospects that have maybe not the same potential, but these guys have clearly not gotten the job done. If we go by current ability, it's these guys down here, these 7 players actually, that still still don't have a 35 overall. Now, the 19-year-olds, maybe you give them a little more time, but probably not. Right? If they still haven't hit a 35 by this point and are 19, 20, 21 years old, they've been in the system for 3 or 4 years. Now, we only just turned professional coming up on 2 years now. So that was kind of the turning point where we really started to see some development. Some players are developing very nicely. Marmon Ings is somebody who he's only 18. Just a short while ago, 2 seasons ago, I think he was a 40-something when he was brought in on his intake. He doesn't have a ton of potential, but that's kind of a good thing. When they don't have a ton of potential, it means they can reach that potential and not have to be bothered by big clubs coming in and taking them away from us, and they can be regular features in our side. He's only had 1 appearance this season, but he's reached a point where he can contribute, and Primus is on the edge, or can start doing that. And so there's going to be a slightly new look to the squad season by season. It's not just the 2 players out and their replacements, it's the development internally of others to replace some weaker elements that have been with us for a long time. One final example of somebody exactly like that is Maxwell Grigg. Maxwell Grigg was a 44 of 134. He's 22 years of age. He is tied for the oldest player in the squad, and Maxwell Grigg was the original or second, I think he was maybe the second goalkeeper we ever had. He's been the starter multiple times. He's been the starter. Berchielli is our current starter with a 107 credibility. Massive difference. He started as a 44. He's a 47, and yet he has played a lot of senior team football. He's nowhere near our second best or even third best keeper at this point, and this is going to be it. This is that turning point, because I've been giving others the starts in the U21s and the U18s to help them develop. We have good training facilities. The clubs, the non-league clubs, generally don't. So sending them to lower divisions to get first team action isn't necessarily helpful. For the most part, we've hardly loaned anyone out. In fact, since turning professional, that's when we're first able to even really bother doing so. And I think I've loaned out a total of 2 players or 3 players total right now. Not much. But you can see kind of our cutoff point for effective player-wise is mid-70s. These are the backups that are kind of there because we need them, and these 4 guys almost certainly will be replaced by someone else come next season as we reshuffle the deck just a little bit. But that is going to do it for this first/47th episode here of FM Youth Factory. But now it's Football Manager 24. I'm excited by the changes because there is so much quality that has been added to the game this year, and I'm looking forward to keep right on going with our climbing of the ladder with Youth Factory FC. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Thanks for being here. If this new look, this episode 1, this FM 24 feature of it is going to help bring in a new and larger audience to the game, it is going to require a little bit of help in the algorithm, and it is this first episode where it is most important. So if you could take a moment, drop below, click that like button, leave a comment. Are you happy about transitioning from FM23 to FM24? Are you new to the series and wanting to pick up right from here, or are you going to want to go back and look at the old series? Let me know in the comments below. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.